What is happening, you wonderful people? So the other day I uploaded my video called or titled "My Most Surprising Films of 2024." If you have not checked out that video yet, go check out that video. Go like, comment, share on that video. And this one is called "My Most Disappointing Films of 2024." I had a lot of surprises this year. I didn't have very many disappointing films, which I'm happy about that. I'm glad. But I still had some, and all these disappointing films I'm going to be talking about I'm truly disappointed by. So let's talk about it. So these are not in any order at all, but I have my Google Doc on my phone. I'm going back and forth to try to see which ones I want to talk about first. And this was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. Bob Marley, One Love. I don't want to say I hate this film. This is not a horrible, terrible film, bad, awful film by any means. There's some really good things about this film. And I am a huge Bob Marley fan. Bob Marley is my favorite artist of all time. It's actually kind of funny because when my mom was pregnant with me, my mom's a big Bob Marley fan as well. She always has been. And when she was pregnant with me, and she told me this story, and when she did, I was like, oh, that's cool. When she was pregnant with me, she was playing Bob Marley, and apparently I was moving around in her stomach, So, I reacted to that. So, I'm a huge Bob Marley fan. So, when I heard they were making this film, I was very excited about that. Very excited. They released a trailer, they released a second trailer, and I thought it looked phenomenal. I walked in and I wasn't a big fan. And I think the problem with this film is that it suffers from mainly two things where the pacing could have been tighter because the pacing feels like it's all over the place. And I don't remember if I said, because I only saw it once back in February, so it's been almost a year since I've seen it, and I don't really want to watch it again. I don't remember if I said the pacing was too slow or too fast. I don't remember, but I do remember the pacing being one of my issues for the film. It needed more time to breathe. It needed more time to breathe, and it just didn't do that. And also, this movie gives us the true story about Bob Marley, how he became the icon in the music industry and how his music changed people's lives. And it gives us half of that good story, but at the same time, it just doesn't give you all of the elements to the story that it should. And therefore, it just ends up being middle of the road and just doesn't end up working, if that makes sense. And speaking of February movies, this one I was very excited for. This was one of my most anticipated movies of the year as well. And it's Argylle. I wanted to like Argylle. I really did. You have Henry Cavill. Dude is so cool. I love Henry Cavill. Love that dude. You have Bryce Dallas Howard. She's great. You have Samuel L. Jackson. He's great. You have Sam Rockwell. He's great. You have all this cast that on paper, and especially with this story and this spy story, about a book and there's twists and stuff. On paper, it sounds cool. It sounds like it's going to work. Everyone's going to like it. It's going to be one of the best movies of the year, right? And just like Bob Marley, One Love, I like that film more than this one. This is not a horrible film. It's not. But it just does not elevate. It does not elevate. And and there's nothing wrong with having twists in a film, obviously. There's nothing wrong with having a lot of twists in a film at all. But one of the problems with this film is that it relies on too many twists. And you get so, I don't think bored is the right word, but I don't even think annoyed is the right word, but you're just sitting there and there's a twist. Like you're sitting in the movie watching it, right? And there's a twist here. 5 seconds later, another twist. 10 seconds, another. And then on and so forth. And you're just sitting there and you're like, slow down. I need to understand the story. Like, I need to understand it. And I couldn't. In the movie, is so dead gum long. It takes you out of it. It takes you out of it, and you're just sitting there, and you're just it's just I see the potential in this film. I saw the potential, and I was really looking forward to this film. And I know a lot of people were, and I know a lot of people were excited for this film, but it didn't work for me. And speaking of Henry Cavill, this film they only released one trailer for this film, and the marketing was terrible for this film. But the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, I was super excited for this film. The trailer they released was really good. It was really good, and the problem is, and I only watched this once back in April, so I'm trying to gather all my thoughts. I don't really need to watch it again, but it's funny. It definitely is funny, but it's just I think the story doesn't flow. I'm trying to remember because I only watched it once and I don't want to watch it again. There's some really good things about it. You have Henry Cavill in this film. You have Alan Richardson, who's great. You have Henry Golding, who's great. You have the guy who played on the Saw film, and he was in the Knuckles series, and you know who I'm talking about. He was in this. He was cool. But it didn't fully work, and you needed more time to understand the characters and relate to them. And I can see the potential in these characters per writing wise, but it just fell flat. It just fell flat and just. And I don't want to say it felt dull because it didn't, and I don't want to say it felt soulless because it really didn't. But it just didn't work for me. And when I say this was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, this was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. And this is the movie that kicked off summer movie season, the first movie, summer 2024. And I was looking forward to that as well. The Fall Guy. Ryan Gosling, one of my favorite actors, man. Emily Blunt's great. Winston Duke is great. Everyone in here was great. There's some fun to be had with this film. It's funny at times as well. But I just didn't feel anything in this movie, man. I just did not feel anything. It's a mix of a romance, action. It's a mix of a lot of things that should make this movie work, but it just doesn't elevate, and it just does. You don't feel anything. And I know this movie is getting a lot of good reviews, and I'm happy about that. I know majority of people really enjoyed this film, and I'm happy about that. It got 80 something on Rotten Tomatoes. That's awesome. It got like 86, which is really good. But I did not feel anything, man. And there are some really funny moments. There are some really good moments. Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt's chemistry is great. Winston Duke his chemistry with Ryan Gosling is great in this film. And there's some fun to be had with it. But I wanted to feel something, and I didn't feel anything. I mainly just felt a sense of boredom, I guess. It just didn't work for me, sadly. And man, I waited for this film for about 2 years, I think. Salem's Lot. Now, I was really looking forward to this film, and I'll tell you why. Because I've never seen the original Salem's Lot. I am going to watch it eventually, and then the series as well. I don't know if I'll watch the series. I might, but the reason I was really excited for this film is because CinemaCon 2022, so CinemaCon a few years ago, Warner Bros. Their panel when they were up, they were talking about the Salem Lot film, right? Salem's Lot, and they were talking about how it's going to come to theaters and all of that, and then it got delayed, and it got delayed again, and there was no news about it. There was no news about it for a good few years, and they finally announced that it was going to be released on Max on streaming, and I was like, ooh, that's a bad sign. That's a bad sign. And I watched the trailer they released, and I was like, not digging this trailer that much. So I watched the movie. It's not horrible by any means, but it's not great. This movie is supposed to scare you, and it doesn't do that. Maybe there's some terrifying imagery in this film. Maybe there's some terrifying moments, like creepy imagery, creepy, like vampires. Like the vampires in this were actually, or just one vampire. It's actually pretty freaky in this film, so they did good with that. CGI on them was not that great, but it just isn't scary, man. And it just doesn't. These characters are not likable in this film. They're not, and you don't care about this story. You don't care about the direction they're going in, the direction they're trying to go with this film, in this film, and it just feels dull and it falls flat and it just feels hollow. That's the right word, is hollow. And it just, yeah, I didn't like New Salem's a lot. It was fine, but I mean, it's just, eh, you know. And coming up on my last two, this one is Moana 2. Moana, the original, is one of my favorite animated movies of all time. It is in my top 10 for sure. I don't know. It might be my top 5. I know it is top 10, but I think it's top 5. Moana is such a beautiful, emotional film that captures you emotionally and invests you emotionally, especially with the songs. Miranda made amazing songs in Moana, and I listen to those songs all the time. Even when I'm driving, I listen to those songs. I don't care. I don't care what anybody says. I love the music in that movie. So, 2020, they announced Moana 2 was going to be a Disney Plus series. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Okay, don't know how I feel about that. I'd rather it be a movie, a full length movie. But earlier this year, they announced it was going to be a theatrical film. It was going to go to theaters. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm very excited about that. I'm glad they're going that route. I'm glad about that. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's emotionally not there. And I wanted to feel something in this film as well. I didn't. There's maybe a few good emotional moments, but even those emotional moments are so vague and so minute, and it doesn't work in the songs. There's one song that is pretty catchy, but I don't remember what it's called, and I don't remember how it goes. That's how forgettable this movie is, and how forgettable those songs are. And the villain, she is there, and then she isn't. And it's just she's just there. And you see Maui again, which Maui's great. Moana's great. Her parents are great. The chicken, the pig, her grandma, like all of the characters are great. Animation's beautiful. And the score, not the songs in the film, but the score is great. And like the story's fine, but it just didn't work for me, sadly. And I was really, really looking forward to this film, especially after they announced it was coming to theaters. I was so excited about that. And lastly, on my most disappointing films of 2024 list in this video, KRAVEN the Hunter. The, this movie just falls flat on every level. It does. And this is supposed to come out last year. And I was hyped for it. But then it got delayed. And my hype went down. And the trailers didn't really do anything for me. When they released both trailers, I was like, okay, we'll see if it's good or not. And then they released the first 8 minutes online a couple weeks ago. That first 8 minutes didn't work for me. It didn't. And Aaron Taylor Johnson's a great actor. Russell Crowe's great. Ariana DeBoe's great. The kid who plays Chameleon, Dimitri. I think he was the kid in Gladiator 2. He's good. Everyone in here is really good, man. It's just they butchered everything in this film. The dialogue sounds like it's written by a fourth or third grader. The CGI is awful. And wait till you see what they do with the Rhino. It is bad because KRAVEN is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. He is. Rhino is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. I like Rhino more than KRAVEN. But what they do with Rhino in this film is blasphemy. It is blasphemy. I don't understand what they were thinking. And it's just, the acting's bad too. And it's just, the writing wise, these characters make stupid decisions. And I will say, I don't think it's as bad as everyone is saying it is, but it is still really bad. It's not as bad as everyone's saying it is, but it is still a horrible film. It is. And it's just, I try to, when I saw it, and until right now, like, since I've seen it and now, I'm trying to think if there's any good things about the film. And I keep going back to not really at all. Like, Aaron Taylor Johnson's a great actor. Everyone's great. I wouldn't say they were all phenomenal in this film. But it's hard to think about what's good about this film, man. It's not. I was laughing at some of the scenes. Like, there's a scene with the actor who plays the Rhino, right? And before he turns into the Rhino, earlier on in the film, and like one of his henchmen is behind him talking to him, telling him about something, and he's like right here, like he has his hands on the desk, right, or some desk, and he gets mad and he opens his mouth and screams, but no noise. And y'all know what scene I'm talking about if you've seen the movie, and if you haven't, go look it up. You'll get a good laugh out of it. It just it's it's goofy, but not in a good way. And it's just I feel like it tries too hard to be good, but it just falls flat. And it just ends up being awful. So that'll wrap up this video. Thank y'all so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, do not forget to subscribe, like, comment, share this video. We were at almost at 700. We're reaching that. 600 and almost at 600 as well. 620 subs. Next big milestone is 700, then 8, 9, and the big one's 1K. And then if you're new to the channel as well, I do movie reviews, TV show reviews, trailer reactions, movie live streams, movie news, all that wonderful movie stuff under the movie umbrella. And let's talk about down below. What y'all think of this year? What are y'all's most disappointing films of the year? Is KRAVEN y'all's most disappointing film of the year? Is Moana 2, Salem's Lot, Argyle, any other film? Let's talk about down below. Happy New Year. Have a safe and happy New Year, y'all. Keep talking movies, my wonderful people. Cheers.